Hello students, in this video we'll discuss about the next bit of the topic, that is chapter breathing and exchange of gases. So here we'll talk about the mechanism of respiration, mechanism of mechanism of mechanism of respiration. So this is important for 5 marks question, so you can also practice this. So for 5 marks, right? See here students, the mechanism of respiration. Before going to study the mechanism, what is respiration and what we call the breathing process, right? So that involves this process, breathing or ventilation, and some words we are using as a alternative words for respiration. So we can also refer the term in common, breathing, right? Breathing phenomenon. So are also called ventilation or ventilation. So ventilation, it is actually the meaning of breathing or the ventilation is that the process, that is the process of exchange of gases between process of that is process of exchange of respiratory gases, or you can write the gases. So that is mainly O2 and CO2 we can consider, that is the respiratory gases. Process of exchange of gases between the organism and its environment. The organism and its environment, right? So this is what the breathing, right? So it includes here respiration also same, breathing same, so ventilation some other words. So more common ventilation due to today's what we called the pandemic disease COVID, right? COVID-19. So one of the what we called respiratory disorder in diseases, we can study that details, right? So but ventilation is common term what we are using if breathing become naturally, which is stopped by any disorder or anything. So the what we called the ventilation is required. So that is usually artificially breathing is continued by machines, so that is called ventilation actually. Okay, but the same mechanism is takes place when the patient under ventilation. That's what the process of exchange of gases, that is especially respiratory gases, between the organism and the its environment, right? So next you can take the exact mechanism of respiration or mechanism of breathing or mechanism of ventilation when they asked you. So means this is what the expected question. So here it includes the two steps, so that the mechanism includes two steps, or these are the cyclic phenomenon. That's what the cycles of, or what we call the cycles of breathing process. Cycles of breathing process includes two steps. That's what first one is inspiration or inhalation. So I'll take here inhalation. Inhalation. So it's also called inspiration. What is that? Inspiration, right? So inspiration or inhalation is also one of the process. So it's the first cycle we can say take. So what we are taking air inside the lungs from the environment is called inhalation or inspiration. So it is said to be active process. It's a it is a active process. It is an active process where it's an active process during which air enters into the lungs. Yes, air. It's a active process in which air enters the lungs from the environment. Right? So that's what the air is entered into the lungs from the atmosphere, right, or from the environment. So either atmosphere or environment you can consider. Next, so during this process, so what are the changes here? What are the changes occurs? Let us see. Yes, changes during the inhalation or inspiration. So even we can show the diagrammatic representation here. So here this is the trachea we can consider, and bronchi, primary bronchi, and next so we can show the lungs here, right? So this is what the lungs. Yes, this is what the lungs, and even thoracic cavity also we should show. This is what the thoracic cavity, right? So and this is the diaphragm, thoracic cavity, this is, and this is the diaphragm. So here what are the changes what we observed here? Actually the intercostal muscles, and see here intercostal muscles changes in during this, the mechanism means the changes what we observed here, that is during this process intercostal muscles. What is that? Intercostal, yes, intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscles means, so here whatever ribs are there, no, so in between, so here you can observe the, these are the ribs, so in between muscles are there, no, that is called intercostal muscles. Yes, these intercostal muscles and diaphragm. So this is what the diaphragm, and these are the intercostal muscles. So these are the ribs actually what we call like this. So in between there is the intercostal muscles are there. So that intercostal muscles and diaphragm both are contracts, right? What is that? Contracts, right? So due to this contraction the thoracic volume increases. Thoracic volume. So this thoracic volume means here the thoracic cavity is there, no, this one. So this is the thoracic volume increases, right? So this is what the, when it contracts, so the chest volume or thoracic volume goes on increasing. So thoracic volume is increases, thoracic volume increases, and it cause fall of intrapulmonary pressure. So what we call intrapulmonary pressure is decreases. Intrapulmonary pressure is decreases. So intrapulmonary pressure is actually that is there about 760 mm Hg, right? So this is in both lungs same, so that is what it's there, and the thoracic volume will be 756 mm Hg, right? So this leads to a as fall in -2, so means it fall in 754 mm Hg, and this 760 is fall in 758 mm Hg, right? So these are the changes what we observed. So this leads to enter the air is rushes into the, because the -2 when happens, the fall in the pressure of this pulmonary pressure is decreased due to thoracic volume increases. So this pressure is, when volume is increases, so this will become wide, and the pressure is decreases. Volume if increases, pressure decreases. So this is what the gaseous law you might have studied in the subject, other subjects also, right? So these are the changes we should remember here, right? And the even the air enters into the lungs, intrapleural pressure is also decreases. One more, that's what intrapleural, yes, intrapleural pressure. So as you know already, pleural membranes is decreases, intra, the both the what we call the fall in, yes, the volume increases, and it causes the fall of intrapulmonary pressure, and both intrapleural pressure and the air rushes, like both this is also decreases, you can write decreases, right? So intrapleural pressure and intrapulmonary pressure and intrapleural pressure both are decreases. So when these are decreases, usually due to the increase in the volume of thoracic cavity, right? So now, so these are the changes for, and next step is the first one, you can see inhalation or inspiration, and the second step is the exhalation. So what you call exhalation or expiration. So inhalation or expiration, in other words we can say expiration. So here it's a passive process, so here it was a active process, that inhalation was the active process. So you can consider here this is the, and this was actually active process as we discussed, and it is said to be passive process, right? It is a passive process during which, so what are the changes takes place. So here actually during this process the air moves out of the lungs. Here air moves out of the lungs to the environment, or to the atmosphere, moves into the atmosphere from inner to outer, right? So next here the changes what we observed here, the changes during this process, intercostal muscles and diaphragm relaxes, right? So here we can show the diagram here. So this is what the trachea, primary bronchiole, and this is what the lungs. Yes, and this is the thoracic cavity. So now what happens when intercostal muscles and diaphragm, this is diaphragm, and these are the intercostal muscles. So this is the ribs actually. So in between intercostal muscles are there. So both this intercostal muscles are get relaxed when that is was in contract during the inhalation and relaxed during, that's why we call it as a passive means relaxed, active means contract, so it should be contract. Relax means here passive process it will become, right? Changes, what are the changes during this process? So we should see here the intercostal muscles and diaphragm. Yes, as I explained already here, intercostal muscles and diaphragm both are relaxed. And next the change, so what we observed here, that is the thoracic volume. Due to this relaxation, thoracic volume decreases. Thoracic volume decreases, right? So here that was increases thoracic volume, and due to this what happens, there is a increase, that is it caused the increase of intrapulmonary pressure and intrapleural pressure. So what I have mentioned here, pressure intrapulmonary pressure, and one more is intrapleural, right? Intrapleural pressures, right? Intrapleural pressures and intrapulmonary pressures both are increased, right? So here when air rushes in this process, so what happens here, the air is goes out due to the increase in the pressure, that is it leads to, actually it was 760, so 760 leads to increases 762 mmHg, right? mmHg. And even this pressure, what we called the intrapleural pressure, 758, it increases 756, it was 7, yes, 756 at, it was at normal, so it is increased to 2, right? So either increase in 2 mmHg leads to a exhalation. So due to this the pressure, so what happens, so that applies on the lungs and air is rushes out, right? So this is called the exhalation, right? So these are the changes we should remember here. Due to this pressure, there is a even what you called the, due to this pressure, thus the air leaves the lungs, you can say, and the pause is referred to the brief period of rest following expiration, right? So after that there is a small pause is there, after again the next that step, that is inhalation. So this way inhalation and exhalation, what you call, are the cyclic process during the breathing. This is what the mechanism of breathing we can say. So we can study this very important. So this is what the mechanism of breathing. Thank you, students.